All right, this is another episode of the Critical Introverts podcast. I'm only with I'm your host, Senor Filth. I'm with Divine Arts, and we have Jay Farmer. If you want to introduce yourself, Jay.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a dude first and foremost from California. Grew up mostly in Central California, which is much more of a conservative part, and so it ends up being a little purple, more or less. Like it's still very much California, but you get to see a little bit more nuanced thoughts there. And I was just a blue collar worker, security guard, warehouse, car detailer, and I like to learn stuff. And I've been studying politics for like 12 years now, just because I want to know who to vote for, and it makes sense. And Around 2018 or so, I started understanding politics on a level that was enough to say I had something to contribute to the conversation, and established the Uncommon Ground YouTube channel and started a podcast, and just try to break things down from a policy perspective pretty
Mm-hmm.
much exclusively. I think the rest of the game is a show. You need to know the show. You need to know how to fight the show.
Yeah.
But it's a largely fabrication and theater. It's not like the policies on the ground are what are hurting people in certain areas and helping people in others. And sorting through all that is a good thing. I had one of the best experiences to have going into politics because I was 17 when I started collecting signatures
Yeah.
for various sponsored political initiatives here in California. And I realized very quickly everyone agrees on everything. We
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
want a good
Definitely.
we all want a good economy. We all want low crime. We all want cheap cost of living. We all want to be more or less free and left alone. There's not these secret factions of people that hate poor people. There aren't these secret factions of people that want the cops beating up citizens every other day. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. And we disagree on how we get there, but we know there's no secret people that want a shitty economy or whatever. Sorry, is cursing allowed here?
Yeah. I don't give a fuck. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Don't worry about it.
Fan fucking tastic. All right. Anywho, most people agree on everything. It's just a question of how you get there. And once I understood politics at a certain level, I learned one, like, that there are solutions and answers, not just endless stupid debates. But I also learned how to talk to people from where they're at and seeing the truth in what they see. As an example, the All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter thing, I kind of alluded to it a moment ago. I just say no cop should be allowed to abuse any citizen, and if they do, they should be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start the conversation there, literally no one can argue with you. Even a cop that I was talking to, like, he tried his feet, but blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hang on, okay, assuming he's behaving and 10 and 2 and all the bullshit, you're not allowed to abuse citizens, right?
Yeah.
He was like, yes. And I was like, thank you, okay? That's it. It's stuff like that versus getting stuck in the tribal BS of all lives matter or Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter. All lives do matter. No one disagrees with those things, and yet we're still stuck fighting.
Do you think it has to do with like a kind of like a tribalistic sportsman mentality that like this country has sort of adopted? Like I've said before on the show, like making compromise like popular, I think it's like almost impossible nowadays because everyone has like this "I must win" mentality, and like how the hell I get like how would we get to a point where like compromise can be trendy? Like, you know what I mean? You think that's even possible?
Yeah, yeah. It's a question of like what that entails. What people think they're compromising.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the tribal
Aspect or
the massive polarization we're feeling right now, which is very overlaid with just tribalism,
yeah.
is because both instinctually we all understand that we're being screwed. But if you listen to the right and they talk about big tech or traditional news and stuff like that, they'll say they have a bias to the left because they associate the left with bad, not there's a left that's establishment and there's a left that's non-establishment.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the left, they do the exact same. I just listened to Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks talking about how he thought that many social media and big tech and things like that have a bias to the right. And he
Really?
used some examples, and like the numbers don't add up that way if you're going like trying to actually statistically analyze it. Like it's like 9-1
Mm-hmm.
right to left that like happens this way, mostly because the left is a shallow party. Like you take away transgenderism, environmentalism, racism, and sexism, they got nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a bunch of just we're good people, and we're the good on the good side, and we're compassionate, but like substantively, they don't have anything left. So uh, I think they're easy to control and placate and manipulate by like, so if you pretend to be on their side, they'll like go with it very easily. And if you're straight up and not manipulative, you seem like the enemy to them.
Do you see how the right can be also sort of manipulated in a similar fashion?
Principled thinking. Whenever you go back to certain like the free market, I call them free market evangelists. You can oversimplify your thinking by going back to traditional wisdom. That's the upside of traditional wisdom is thousands and thousands of years have gone into figuring this shit out. The downside is it's not going to evolve with the most modern things. And in politics, you always have the question of what do we keep the same and what do we change? Tradition and like evolution and the cutting edge. And eventually, if it's been around long enough, it becomes tradition. And then conservatives are, that's kind of when conservatives tend to adopt various views. Like the gay marriage debate is like barely a conversation now. And,
Yeah.
in 2008, I think it was Prop 8 in California.
Yeah.
California voted down gay marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. I guess.
So how did you? I'm curious. How did you start this podcast? And I'd love a background on the quiet lady here.
For me, like I've been kind of following this stuff probably. I want to say like, I've noticed like the bullshittiness, right when like the Trayvon Martin thing was going on. That's when I sort of noticed it, and I do you know who Opie and Anthony are?
Be right back, boys.
Yeah, like okay, so that's good. I noticed that when that was happening, Opie and Anthony, which is a comedic based talk show, was the only show that I was getting like genuine conversations about the Trayvon Martin thing, like the ins and outs, and I just thought it was just so bizarre that it was a comic based show that was the only one that had like just the genuine honesty and the balls to like to have these conversations instead of like having it be like this scripted kind of thing of like, oh, the black community, blah blah blah. It was a lot more nuanced, and from then is when I started like following this stuff like kind of on my own. Like I never liked the mainstream news format. It was just something I just never enjoyed. So like you, I sort of just started following this stuff kind of on my own, at the pace that I can kind of understand things and getting to like certain podcasts and here and there. It wasn't until I think the George Floyd thing is when I started to sort of speak out on it. Like I think this isn't stuff that like I've said before, like, you can just like go to a party and be like, oh man, you guys read that bill about whatever. Like it's not something that is seen that way. It's much more personal and conversational, and it was something I always kind of was curious about starting a podcast, but I just had no. I don't know. There was something I just kind of kept putting off to the side, and it wasn't until the Gina Carano cancellation thing, and like for me as an artist, like censorship is a very like being an artist and censorship kind of go. There's a weird battle between the two things, and like I was seeing people around me like kind of defend it and even celebrate it in a very creepy dystopian way, and I was trying to like voice as to why it's bad, but they just couldn't they couldn't grasp like what I was trying to say. So I decided like, fuck it, I'll just I follow a couple different artists that like are on the same page as me. So I just started to just contact them, and like I didn't even know how to do a show then, so I just sort of like learned as I kept going. And yeah, I've been doing it for almost a year. Um, and I mostly just focus on artists. But I figured might as well start to like reach out to like other, YouTubers and people like you, and just to see like it's an interesting time because I think so much of this is like very like self-researched kind of stuff. So it's a nice time for people to just lift their head up and be like, hey, you, that person that also follows this stuff, like what are, like what have you found out, kind of shit. So it's a nice time to just start to communicate with people and talk about this kind of stuff, because I probably know stuff that you don't know, and you probably know stuff that I don't know. So it's a nice way to like just trade ideas and converse.
Yeah. When I was 15, I sort of decided in my head, I was dealing with some situations where I had to go have a hard conversation and confront someone about something very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even if we disagree, I'm going to gain something from the conversation,
Yeah.
or they will, or I learned that it's not someone I want to talk to. Like, no matter what, it's kind of productive to just engage and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the person I talked to ended up thanking me for being so straightforward, and so it almost like extra reinforced and the
Yeah.
conversation went great. So and
Do
so
do you do you
I'm all
remember?
for it. I know that you the iron sharpens iron with minds. Like
Yeah.
you'll gain a lot from this type of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to be engaging with those kinds of things. And our generation, more so, it's not even our generation in terms of age, but this time period
Mm-hmm.
where we have free flow of information and it's only starting to get censored again, and it
Yeah.
was censored before. This is the only window where shit will change.
Yeah.
Once they recensor things and the new generations have no sense of truth or no sense of the lies, and it takes them decades to learn what we've learned in the last decade,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And I think we're all aware of that, and we all want to see something different happen. We are switching to, you want to look at it, you could look at it, and it is creepy coming from Biden, the New World Order comment, but the world order is changing.
Yeah.
And I have no intention of letting them be the ones in charge. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's lots of steps that, especially the crypto libertarian community, can take to really, really disrupt their attempt to reestablish power. And we've already done a lot of it. The fact that we've made money that the people are in charge of,
Yeah.
and we can have our own money and just totally opt out of fiat currencies if we want to. I mean, that I think that's like that's the first nail in the coffin, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
of the system.
Yeah.
But an animal's most dangerous when it's about to die. So
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that. I'm getting the feeling that how do I put this? Like the ones that are in control are starting to sort of lose grasp of that power. So they're just trying to do what they can to hold on to it. Um, I guess the biggest like example of that would be just all the censorship that's going on, and like how like when you talk to regular people, do they understand the severity of censorship like in its just primal sense?
no,
Because
no, the average person is barely waking up to the fact that their phone might be spying on them.
mm-hmm, yeah,
And the people that are in the know are like pretty much anything that's on your phone now, eventually, especially if you run for office, will probably come out into the public.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
we're past that uh, we're through that looking glass, so to speak.
mm-hmm,
And that's a reality I myself have had to realize. Like, if I'm going to run for office, all the shit's coming out.
yeah.
There's did you ever watch the movie The Circle? I think it was with Tom Hanks. It was about a social
I've
media
heard of it. I've never seen it.
company. Social media company, very much. It was basically Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
They had a campus where they had all the employees that like had a whole life completely obsessed about being in the circle, and your friends group was your circle, and you know how you talk about having an inner circle, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there was this thing called going fully transparent that they explored in that video or in that movie where literally 24/7 you're completely surveilled and broadcast to the world, and certain people are watched the whole time. And it gets to a point where a daughter tries to video chat her parents just to talk late at night while she's being 24/7 full transparency.
Yeah.
And her dad is paralyzed, and the parents are trying to have an intimate moment, and a penis pump is involved in that particular moment. And she broadcasts to the world by breaking in like in that moment, and shows the entire world that happening, and like the and just that whole into their bedroom. And that, that's what we might have happen if we're not careful. Now, what was beautiful was in that movie, in the end, they publicized all the secrets of the people in charge of the company, and sort of mandated that if we all have to be fully transparent, you do too. But the truth is, like, people will grow to be stronger, but people shouldn't have to live their lives exposed to public ridicule for everything.
Yeah.
Like, high school's supposed to end at some point,
Yeah, that's a great.
Where you don't have to care about what the jocks and the idiots think, and you can just live your life in peace, and like you're not going to lose your job.
Yeah.
That's the most dangerous thing right now, is how people will lose their job. It's just me.
Yeah.
Me.
We've.
I'll show you. We have a weight set.
Oh, cool.
And a bunch of stuff set up here, so me and my brothers usually hang out and work out.
That's it. Cool.
So
yeah,
I just started a few days ago, but it's a tight setup. I like it.
You like to weightlift and stuff like that?
Yeah. I was in football a little bit and powerlifting in high school, and then I've lifted weights on and off here and there pretty much since high school. And now I'm getting back into it. And in the next couple of years, in July, I'm going to have a powerlifting competition. It'll be my first one ever.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Just to see what I can do. And I also want to compete in jiu-jitsu a little bit after that. And that'll be a different conditioning, different training regimen. But I was blessed. My dad was an athlete. I'm blessed with certain, I'm pretty athletic. I'm a big dude. I'm 5'7.5", 310 pounds.
Wow.
But I can run a 5'2", 40.
Right.
Like I can blast and sprint. I've got thick legs, and I'm doing fine. So anyway, athlete is part of what I got going on here, but it's a quieter part. I really love MMA, but I had to make a decision for my brain as to whether or not to pursue it. And because I can do the things I'm doing like this, it seems to be worth it to have not gone down that route. But I'd still like to have some fights and some fun. Yeah. That'd be cool. But for now, it's just politics and some training for fun.
Oh, wait. Sorry about that. I kind of noticed too, like you're bringing up this, I noticed that people that are like the SJW kind of types, they usually they're not the most healthiest looking people. And I think that also kind of reflects onto like why they are mentally, because if you get into weightlifting, you're not going to like day one start lifting 50 pounds. It's a gradual thing. And I think the same thing with like just conversations, like they're so timid from like venturing off outside of their own little bubble that like they just stay away from it. Even if you like it, the idea of like spoon feeding just little by little, just to understand things. It's not to like convert them to the Church of Trump. It's just like, it's just to get them to understand that things are more complicated, and it takes time. And
I can understand why, someone wouldn't want to support Trump, even from a policy perspective. Like they might not have the same priorities, But the issue is that it was almost always just he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And they can't get past that. And it's like, dude, and this is how, I mean, I made my mind up in about 5 seconds about this under Obama before Trump even showed up. This dude or woman, whoever, is in charge of 330 million people's lives in some level. And his decisions affect that many people. So to weigh his BS rhetoric either way over the actions is a stupid decision. Now with Obama, every speech he had, I was inspired. You know, that it was really, to me, messed up. I don't get why they did this, but they played Obama's State of the Union speech in our high school. Might have just been that teacher that did it. But anyways, you know, a little propaganda there. I bet they didn't show any of Trump's. But anyways, and every time I heard Obama speak, I was inspired. I feel like he spoke to the moment we were in, and he laid out plans for the future I completely agreed with. The reality just didn't line up with that whatsoever. So I learned that the rhetoric doesn't mean shit. The show, as I referred to earlier, the show doesn't matter. It's the policy and like what you have accomplished for the people that matter. So,
it seems like people, that's the one weird thing that I've noticed. You know who Michael Malice is, right? Do you know who Michael Malice is?
I love Michael Malice.
He's great.
Yeah, the Willy Wonka of politics.
Yeah.
Appropriately named, man.
I can't remember where I heard him say this, but he said something about they were talking about Trump. He mentioned something about like the best thing that the Trump movement did, or Trump did, was that he kind of forced people to go off their script. And I've noticed even with this COVID thing, like there's so much people that just, I don't know, but like they're so used to just like reciting some kind of script, and if you just ask them to just like genuinely, like, what do you personally think? Like, don't tell me what NPR said the other day. Like, what do you think is a good idea? And that would somehow break people. It's the weirdest thing. And it feels like this realization that like the people that you've been hanging out with like aren't as genuine as you hope they were. And it's very bizarre.
Yeah, politics is unique in that respect. I had a family member. Hang on. I had a family member who once told me I had to be very careful to never talk about 4 things in polite conversation: religion, sex, money, and politics. My immediate response in my head, because she was a family member, I didn't want to be rude, was, so we're not supposed to talk about the most important things in life. Yeah. Getting your money right, getting politics right, knowing where your soul's going in the afterlife, and what was the other one? Sex, like you know, basic human fulfillment, about as needed as eating. Yeah. Things we should talk about and have a healthy, robust conversation around. But that's, you know, impolite conversation, which I never bought, and I'm blessed to have lots and lots of people I know that are very in my life as friends and acquaintances that are open to discussions and interesting, smart people. So I've been very blessed in my experiences in life, and many of them help me have certain insights that make me a little bit better than anyone else would be at the shop. Like, for example, my family was screwed by workman's comp. Wow. For 2 years, we were in a situation where workman's comp didn't pay my mom, who was dealing with the issue. Wow. But if she went and worked to try to get money, the entire case would then be turned into a fraud case, even though doctors had already by that point said multiple doctors had said that that she had a legitimate disability. So, and the system is designed, in short, to summarize the workman's comp system: if you have a small injury, give you a little settlement, get it done quick. And if you have a big injury, which will require a big settlement, drag it out as long as you can, and eventually they'll break or have something happen and they can't afford to keep going with the case. And so they eventually quit. And I've talked to lawyers, I've talked to insurance adjusters and other people, and they all agree with that's basically how it works. So it's very unfortunate, but that is indicative of the system. And the way the system works for everyday people, or I should say doesn't work for everyday people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that touched my life, and so that creates a certain personal chip on my shoulder, I guess, with this stuff, because it's not just intellectual ideas. It is, and where my politics blossomed was when I drew the line from politics to everyday people's lives in like really tangible ways. So one of the main ones is the debate around flat versus progressive taxes. I was having that in high school and middle school, I think. We all talk about that. That's sort of the beginning stage of the conversation. There's a whole third category of taxes can be called regressive taxes that don't even get factored into that debate, but that is the main way that the everyday person gets screwed. So if you have like a gas tax, if you pay $1 when you go in taxes, if you like here in California, you pay $1 in taxes when you go buy a gallon of gas. That dollar is more of a poor person's income than a rich person's income. So it's regressive. It's the opposite, and it adds to the cost of living, which makes people artificially poor and dependent, which makes them go on welfare more. It's the Democrat model, in short. Make everything so expensive no one can live, and then when they're all desperate and starving, offer them, crumbles, and then they'll be very grateful. That's the model. Anywho,
I guess it's
so all regressive taxes across the entire economy, whether it's luxury taxes on rental cars or property taxes a little bit, but all these things burden everyday people and make living more expensive. And once I started to think in those terms, like so many aspects of the system screw everyday people fundamentally, depending on where you live in different ways. But like Utah's awesome. I lived in Utah for 3 years. Utah is amazing. It's the best economy in the States, like officially ranked. They've got like a Silicon Valley called the Silicon Slopes out there that's blossoming. I had a few friends that were involved in that stuff, and it's an amazing place. Almost no crime, decent, cheap cost of living. And so I got to see the good, and I got to come back to Cali and see the contrast and the not so good.
What made you move back?
To be politically active and try to help. Check this out. This is how stupid I was. Not really, but you can't see the future. January 5th, 2020 is when I moved back to California.
Really? Wow.
2 months before the pandemic hit the fan. And like most people didn't know, but the pandemic was already like 6 months on at that point. And I came to Cali being like, I'm going to get active and help fix this state and blah, blah, blah. And then boom, we're all locked down.
So you had plans to fix Cali even before COVID hit? Huh.
Yeah. Like I knew it was needed beforehand.
At that time, like what did you see going on in Cali pre-COVID?
So when you allow rape and murder, especially like sex offenders and stuff, to be a regular presence in the society, which is what high crime translates to, people are being abused more. There's more rapes victims. There's more assault victims. There's more homicides. There's more, like in Chicago, little girls that get shot by stray bullets, or little, boys, whatever, it doesn't matter. Cost of living is a huge, like when I think about, like, say here in California, you pay $1,500 for a two and a half bedroom, or 2 bedroom, 2.5 bath, whatever kind of apartment or something. In Utah or in other states, you pay half that. And so when you think about the collective effect of half of people's rent that could be removed with better policy, and also the way California goes is the way the whole nation goes. And it's my home. Yeah. More than anything, it's where I grew up. So I wanted to help my home and make it better and make it, I believe the golden state can become the golden standard if we got our head out of our ass, but that's a giant ask.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely one thing that, like, prevents me from just saying fuck it and moving out, because it is something that's been crossing my mind over these last few years, but like
Actually, I will let you continue, sorry, but I need to interrupt for this. I have a better answer.
Okay, I'm just
When I
saying.
realized
Okay.
how infused the Chinese influence is here in California,
Hmm.
I knew this is where the battle needed to be fought. Um, Now I'm not staying in California. I'm moving in 2 months to
Okay.
get out of here to move to Oklahoma because I want to build a business and sort of gather the troops there and then jump back and try to do something in a couple of years here. But um, I like this is where the nation will be decided, so to speak. It won't happen in Ohio as much as we like to think it will be.
Do you really think that? Because when I see a lot of this is very like mainstream media driven stuff or Hollywood driven, and like when I see like the ratings of all that stuff like just crash, I do. It does seem like that, like the image of California meaning so much. I think it might be fading just due to just following like the ratings of mainstream everything going down. But I mean maybe it's hard to say. I don't know how strong the hold, like the Hollywood hold is now, and how it's going to be like 5 years from now.
My bad.
Yeah,
Had some carbonation come back up.
yeah, that's why I'm curious about like when people bring up this idea of like a second economy, kind of coming out of this, like.
Half of all the unemployed people
Mm-hmm.
during the depression from lockdowns were in California.
Oh wow.
Half of all the unemployed people in the nation were here in California, and I was one of them. I was
Yeah.
doing this collecting signatures thing when this all got shut down and didn't have work anymore, and we were on full lockdown. Um, so I felt the consequences of the lockdowns. I was in Fresno, California when
Mm-hmm.
this was all happening, and then I moved up to Stockton after. But it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough on here. Part of it also, I guess, here's a better way of saying it. So as a nation across the nation and like with everyday people, there's a tremendous move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I think about politics is the greater the problems, the greater the upside. So California, imagine if you had like who Larry Sharp is from New York? He ran for governor in New York a couple of years back.
It sounds familiar, but it can't.
And anyway, just envision. The point of this was just to envision
Mm-hmm.
a libertarian governor in charge of California for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and what that could do for this state. What that could do for the nation, but what that could do for the state. The positive, like if you had California move into a better direction, like for me, my vision for California is we get our economic policies in order, mostly through. So I would only implement an asset tax. If you own assets, you pay taxes. If you don't own assets, you don't pay anything. No income tax, no sales tax, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 3% a year would cover all tax requirements.
Yeah.
Uh, Anywho, but if we cleaned up our economy here, we could create a California that's got like 150 million people in 20 years,
Mm.
and is just a giant super economy. Like the where California could be in 20 years versus where it is now is such a dramatic change that it's just too appealing to not. Like I could go to any other state. I was in Utah and I had tons of people that would have supported me in Utah if I had stayed there and tried to make something happen, but Utah's doing fine. It doesn't need help.
Yeah.
It's the example to go off of. It's not the thing that needs help. So California needs that help. Like I had Google Fiber. So Google is a California motherfucking company,
Mm-hmm.
and I had Google Fiber in Utah, but there's no Google Fiber in California.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's retarded.
Yeah.
There's no other word for it, man.
But have you ever thought of like hmm, like it's simple to sort of like for guys like us to have these conversations and talk policies and stuff like that. But how would we reach like the regular person that thinks talking about policy stuff is just boring. Like there has to be a way to like have it be
I don't,
entertaining or alluring. I don't know how you explain it, but like so people can follow it.
Trump's magic was he could dial up his vocabulary and dial down his vocabulary. You'd often hear him repeat the same point 3 times in more complex and more simple ways with bigger words and smaller words. When you, and I heard this quote attributed to Einstein. I don't know if it's true, but it doesn't matter. If you truly understand something, you can explain it well to somebody else. And so there's a simplicity that comes with a certain level of economic and other types of understanding that makes it so you can lay these ideas out very quickly. Also, I'm a moderate conservative. There's no question about my allegiances right now. But philosophically, I'm a moderate. I believe in like legalized prostitution. I believe in legalized drug use. I believe that there should be a certain welfare state. It just has to be a decentralized one that mimics the free market. It can't be a centralized BS government bureaucracy. That's just, we've seen how that fails. And so I'm definitely a moderate. And the thing about being a moderate, it offers 2 benefits. One, a benefit of perspective, because you literally are looking for the good in both sides versus just in the constant tribal back and forth. The other good side of it is when you tell someone you're a moderate, they don't immediately treat you like a tribal enemy.
Yeah.
If you say you're a Democrat, Republicans treat you like a tribal enemy. If you say you're a Republican, Democrats treat you like a tribal enemy. I'm an American, and I happen to be a moderate Republican at the moment. But if it was 2002, after 9/11 and like after the bullshit Monica Lewinsky thing and stuff, and with the security state that Bush brought in, I would happily have been voting Democrat because they were the more rational of the 2 sides in that given moment. But it goes back and forth because that's how they play us.
Yeah.
By making you like, all of a sudden, once Biden got into office, the mainstream media started trying to be a little bit more like sensible in the way they went about things and offering mild criticisms and then talking about some stories we liked.
Yeah.
And it's all to try to play us, to get us to think that they're actually not quite as bad. They learned some lessons, blah, blah, blah. No, they got their enemy out. They got their boy in, and now they're going back to the old game. What they did under Trump was they made us collectively so insane and stressed out that like people were literally like, Trump in office, problem, get him out. And like, that's it. Because if you were a Trump supporter, you supported literally racist Hitler, you know? I mean, I guess Hitler was racist. You support literally orange Hitler, you know? Like that's what a lot of people thought. And then what Trump's magic was getting people's attention. And if he said something that was provocative enough, you'd go and look it up. Be like, did he really say that shit? And then you'd realize, no, he didn't actually say that shit. It was not what they made it out to be. He was making a much milder point. Like being concerned, like the very first thing was the Mexicans rapists thing over the border.
Yeah.
Any rapes that happen because of illegal immigrants that came over the border, and sometimes they've been deported 8 times, 9 times. When that person commits a rape, it's completely unnecessary and it's a problem. Even if you don't want to say that like domestic Americans rape more than whatever, it's a clear problem. And he was just saying, hey, there's this freaking problem. It seems like BS.
Yeah.
And like that was his point. But the system was like, how can we make the most money off of his words?
Yeah.
And so I did a deep dive on Trump. Art of the Deal, 1987. He said, the press loves a good story. If you're a little different, a little sensational, and you say something a little crazy, they'll write about you and give you free publicity. Add 35 years, here we are. He understands how to play their system to a T. And what he did was, when he wanted to bring attention to an issue, he said something provocative about that issue, and then they'd all react, and then our eyes would all go, and we'd pay attention. and he kept us paying attention for 4 years, for the first time in fucking probably 80 years.
Yeah.
The American people have been paying attention that long to politics, and it's all for the better. Like, light is the best disinfectant, 100%. So it was all for the better.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because like when Trump first announced he was running, I literally had no interest in like even voting. But I would just sort of like, my plan was like, I'll start paying attention once like, you know, the Republican debates kind of go down and like we're left with like 3-4 people, then I'll start paying attention. But then that first you know, press conference, the rapist thing, like I just saw like this huge, like, it almost felt like a trend, like people just wanted to get on this because it was cool. Like, oh, he's the, like, it became like this conversation starter at every party I went to and shit like that. And like, it made me, you know, watch the whole thing. I think I watched it like 2 times in a row just to be like, is this what everyone's fucking bitching about? And then like, I would just ask people simply like, did you even watch it? And they would get mad at me, and then they would just want to change the subject. And that's
because the truth is that they are probably 5 steps removed from the actual facts. Like, someone watched the video, somebody else figured out how to manipulate it, then that went to NPR, and then it was written in the New York Times, and then that person listened to their friend who reads the New York Times and got that story. Like, that's the stage that most of those people are at when it comes to being plugged into these things. So
it was just so bizarre to see, like I said, like I never liked mainstream presentation of news. I just never liked the format. But then that was like the moment I'm seeing, like, you know, New York Times and fucking NPR, like all this like supposedly respected institutions jump on something that like I, as just some random douche, can just like fact check my own by just watching the video that you could just search on YouTube. It was just like this real, like this nice crumbling of like some kind of narrative just happening like right in front of my eyes.
Had you been balls deep in YouTube for a long time before this all happened? Were you a big YouTube consumer?
Pretty much. Like all the podcasts and stuff like that was through like long format kind of things. Like I said, I don't like the mainstream news. I don't like quick bit news, like, oh, today in the news, and then they move on to the sports. Like I like to sort of like delve into a subject, you know, if that requires like listening to like a 2-hour conversation on something that the average person would think is just boring as hell. I'm that guy that would listen to it because I'm just that guy, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I was a big YouTube guy.
You're heavy on the intellectual side and the personality dimensions. You like ideas kind of in and of themselves. Like, the men have a tilt, and some women, but men largely have a tilt towards things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those things are ideas.
Yeah.
Depending on your personality.
Yeah, it was a nice. Did you are you aware? Do you know about like Gamergate? Do you know about that?
Gamergate? Yeah.
Yeah, like that was sort of like the beginning of like when I started like really paying attention to this kind of stuff, like through YouTube, because it was only YouTube really that you were able to get like the other side of that. And to this day, like people just have this image of what that is. It's like this attack on feminism.
We're very blessed. You know, I asked you about whether or not you were into YouTube beforehand. We were very blessed. I was too, to have had that tool that we were using for other things. And then when the political thing with Trump came up, it's like, why not just look it up on YouTube? Just, you know, it's already in your little circuits. You're like, bam, bam.
Yeah.
And then you see it, and then you're like, oh. And then that's when you break off from all those other people, because you see something that they didn't see, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a glorious time when YouTube was pretty, you could just pretty much see anything on YouTube. Like, I remember seeing regular, like, even though I was never that much an Alex Jones guy, you could just find Alex Jones clips if you just wanted to watch them.
One of my first YouTube videos that I like searched for to find something
Mm-hmm.
was how to make Atlas stones. I don't know if you've ever watched Strongman or like The Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
whenever they compete in strongman sports, but they have these big stone balls they
Yeah.
lift up and toss over stuff.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And
Yeah.
I figured out, I looked up on a YouTube video of how to make those.
Yeah.
And like you buy little shells and duct tape and you like, have to get all the bubbles out and stuff. Like it
Yeah.
was dope. But like that's what YouTube was for. And then it just evolved from there.
Yeah, like all of a sudden, like people are getting philosophy and all this other stuff through the same medium that, like, you're watching cat videos and stuff like that. It's this weird,
The
very
guy that did that, his name was Elliot Hulse, and he's Red Pill King.
really.
Not really. He's doing his own thing, but he's if you go and look him up on the internet, he's about building a male army of people ready for when this shit hits the fan.
He was the guy that was building the balls.
Yeah,
Guy?
he's a strength and conditioning coach out of St. Petersburg, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a philosopher and a strength and conditioning coach, and that's why I gravitated towards him at such a young age because I had a lack of an example for a father. And so I had to kind of work with a blank slate and sort of build from scratch. And so I just started looking up guys that I thought were admirable and reverse engineered it from there. And here I am.
Yeah. That's one thing I noticed about, like, the people like us. Like we're sort of people that were like, we weren't part of like that, oh, Wednesday night, I'm going to be watching Friends tonight. We weren't part of like that mainstream crowd. We were just sort of like, I'm just going to be by myself.
Introverts.
Yeah, I'm just going to go on YouTube and search whatever fucking videos. And like, that's what I've sort of noticed throughout like this whole, I don't know what you want to call it, this red pill movement. Like, it's people like that weren't part of that kind of mainstream bubble. And it's nice to like just talk to people that have something genuinely surprising to say instead of like they're just talking about whatever Marvel movie is out and shit like that,
Yeah, there's the NPCs and the social climbers and the combinations of those two.
that kind of
And
stuff.
I hated those people from the time I was like 7 years old. I was like, that is not my crowd whatsoever. I can't stand them.
Yeah, like we've talked before about this on you kind of brought it up, like this idea that it feels sort of like it's like this one big high school that like people are so tied to like
high school never ended.
Yeah, like
because of social media.
Like they're trying to be cool and in with the thing, but
I think she's trying to say something. I don't know if your mic's on though.
Vine, I think your mic is off or you're on mute. Yeah, not getting
See,
sound.
can't hear you at all. See?
Maybe
it's not that women are unheard. It's that she's literally unheard.
Maybe try signing out and then signing back in, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing. It's like I'm noticing, like, you grew up with people that were that type that like always were in with the new thing, and then okay. Still nothing. Ah, crap. Hmm. Nothing? Ah, crap. Maybe check your audio stuff. I guess come back.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah. Oh, crap.
We just took up the whole time she was on there, and then now she can't even say anything. That sucks. I want to show you real quick. I don't know. I think it's reflected, so you can't tell. But this is Patriot marijuana.
Tight.
Little insignia. My stoner brother. I mean, we're all stoners now, but my oldest younger brother of the three got us that, and he anyways, it's pretty badass. It's a little insignia because we're all cool. Marijuana in America loving young men.
Very tight. Oh, she's back on. Let's see, we're getting something.
So, do you lift weights
Any
too,
progress?
Oh, yeah, we can hear.
Got it.
Okay,
we have it.
Yay! Sorry.
So, what were you gonna say? What were you trying to say?
Man, unfortunately, I completely forgot.
Blanked out?
I don't even remember.
We were talking
No,
about
what do you-
YouTube and stuff like that. Ring a bell? Nothing.
So we were talking about YouTube. We were
And like
talking about
introverts and
okay, that's right. One of you guys pointed out that it's just like being
high school.
in high school, yeah.
high school, and I thought that was like the best comparison
Yeah.
that you've made, because high school you're supposed to like embarrass the kid who snitched out the bad kids. Only this time it's like a whole mob of people out to dox you through Antifa or BLM, and it's just like, I thought we were past this.
Yeah, it does. Like I'm as immature as anyone can get, but when it comes to this stuff, like I do bring a level of, I guess, some kind of maturity. You know what I mean? Like if you look at my background, I have toys and stuff like that. But you know, I generally do try to, I guess, be mature about this kind of stuff. But
I mean, you know how I kind of learned about how crazy people were. I mean, I had one of my ex-girlfriends just like, Trump will not divide us. And then I just gotta said to myself, but it's not Trump I'm worried about.
yeah, I had a moment when he got elected. It was just the oddest thing because, you know, I'm a guy. I follow Instagram models and stuff like that. And I'm seeing like those Instagram models posting things like, you know, America's hurt today. And I'm just like, what the hell is this?
It's a dark day in American history.
Yeah.
Why is America in pain? Like, it's a dude that we voted for.
Yeah,
dude, it was funny. I was on your guys' side. I wasn't surprised at all.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where like I voted, like I supported Trump. I voted third party because I was in California, but I would have voted for Trump. I said on social media I would have voted for Trump back then.
Yeah.
Anywho, the primaries, you talked about only watching the last few.
Yeah.
I didn't watch 1 minute of the primaries.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it was Trump versus a bunch of nerds, and I knew the Republican Party, and I knew he would win. It took me 2 minutes when I looked at the field and just like took it. I literally looked at just pictures of all the people, and I was like, it's done. None of them are, you know, charismatic, business, TV, whatever. None of them had a chance. And you saw that. None of them knew how to deal with him. And he was literally just like kind of making them look like idiots or just like.
Just boring, I think.
When you're willing to be obnoxious and like the person doesn't know how to handle it, you win somehow. Yeah. I don't know why, but you do. That's the end.
Yeah, so. It's like, I don't know if you guys ever had like a remedial job, like worked at Taco Bell or something like that, but like if you ever had one of those jobs and you met someone, like someone from corporate comes in and they're like super like way into
Taco Bell.
I worked
at Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, okay. But like you meet someone from corporate and they're like so into like, you know, the company, and they just come off like sort of fake and like a salesman. That's sort of like how it kind of came off, like with Trump. Like everyone else sort of felt like that corporate kind of, I have to be this straight-laced guy, blah blah blah, and he
like
was just
he actually had a brain in that head of his.
Makes you wonder, like if he had Democrat in his name, do you think he would have like still gotten the scrutiny he would have gotten, or would they have accepted him?
If he had come in for the Democrats, he would have been so praised, and he would have been pretty much held up as a god if he came in for the Democrats.
Makes me wonder.
The moment he stood up for the Republicans, holy cow, we saw how the world like revealed it the way it really was. When we were wanting to delve into cat videos and how to make great art pieces.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just gonna say, I think it was more so that he was anti-establishment or not controllable. And so I think, because like what we saw with Bloomberg was the fact that he had non-disclosure agreements with like certain women because he had done some stuff. Yeah. Like the whole party went after him for that. And like Trump is a rich man. Trump is an old rich man. And Trump is a very vain old rich man. So he's like not. He could pass as a Democrat while living in New York because people understand what it's like to live in a place and like have to toe that line. But I don't think the Democrats would have accepted him the same way. I think the Republicans have enough respect for the people and for American values to where they didn't Bernie Sanders Trump.
Yeah.
You know, it's documented that the Democrats cut Sanders out and didn't let the people have their Democratic vote.
Yeah.
But the Republicans let Trump through. And that earned a lot of respect for me for that party and made me believe, like, of the two, it's the one that's redeemable. And, you know, one was the party of slavery and kind of being best friends with the Nazis. And the other party was their first president was Abraham Lincoln. So, you know, there's a little bit of a different history here between the two. But
The history speaks
Trump,
for itself.
Once Trump was in office and was an independent decision maker, that's when the entire system was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah. I guess this kind of like switch it up. I guess you brought you said the four things that you can't talk about with that conversation was like money,
it was
politics,
sex, money, religion, and politics.
Yeah,
those are the four topics you never discuss in a polite conversation. And yeah, my response was like, those are the most important things we need to discuss. So we should probably have a healthy discussion.
Let's I guess let's get into religion, because I would say I'm pretty much agnostic. I grew up Catholic, which is common amongst like Hispanics. But I'm agnostic now. But seeing like what's going on now, and like, you know, I went to college and I dealt with like the SJW. Like, I was an art major in a California college, so that's like the fucking factory of SJWs. I kind of like, and I also knew religious people. Like, I don't see that much of a difference between the two. Like, they kind of are after the same kind of thing, like some kind of bigger thing that's beyond them to like help save the world or whatever. And for someone who's agnostic, like, it's hard for me to admit that I think like on a societal level, like people do need some kind of religion. What do you think? Do you think, like, where does morality come from if there isn't a religion? Can it come?
It can, but I have a few questions before we get into the meat, juicy potatoes of it all.
Go ahead.
When you define agnostic, what does that mean? You just don't believe you can know?
It's just, I just call it that, say it that, because I'm at my age. I just have.
What are you, like 12 years old? Your age?
36. I'm
Good for you.
I thought you were 24 all this time.
No. I'm 36 now. But like at the moment, like, you know, it's just the subject of religion is just something that I haven't like got into yet. So I mean, I just call myself agnostic just to be respectful. But you know, maybe fucking in a week from now I'll be saved, or maybe I'll just be an atheist or something like that. So I would say I'm just like sort of undecided, but out of respect, I just call myself agnostic. So I guess.
What about you? What are your what would you call yourself?
Christian,
what are
sir.
your thoughts? Huh?
Full on Christian. I do not consider myself religious at all, but I am full on Christian.
What would be the difference?
Religion to me is doing the tradition without the love. I absolutely love the traditional bits and pieces of it because it came from a history where someone who dearly loved us, or God who dearly loved us, wanted us to do these traditions to help us remember why we're doing them in the first place. And he did it for love for us, out of love for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't consider myself religious. I consider more that I am in a relationship with the Lord, and simple as that.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
I guess what would you...
I've had an interesting journey with this. My grandfather's a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
He's retired now, but he was a pastor for 50-something years. He was the president of the Southern Baptist Convention. And so I grew up a Christian, true believer, and had my faith until I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 18, I came across some material that put into question the historical accuracy of the historical parts of the Bible. And so it just put me, that plus the marijuana issue, funny enough, the political issue, was like a linchpin for me to give up my entire worldview and build it from scratch again. Now, I say that, but I still value truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that was the invisible hand of God walking me through the dark waters, that I still believed that truth was real, discoverable, and that it would be a guiding light, to stick by. And also, I love I heard this quote attributed to Mark Twain: "The less you lie, the less you have to remember."
Yeah.
And my memory is shit. So
yeah. Same here.
Anywho, and so I went through a period of being a non-militant agnostic, non-militant atheist and agnostic. I immediately realized that I had been in a mind prison of sorts where I couldn't think outside certain parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought marijuana was just another drug like heroin and meth and coke, and people just did it to get like blasted, but there was nothing else to it. Then I learned about the fact that we have a cannabinoid receptor system. We've evolved with these plants. It actually has a lot to do with religion and spiritual feelings, and can bring you to the best church service I've had in the last, since all this happened. I was under the influence, and it made it much better. Made it much more feel, I was connecting in a way I had never connected with as a child. I always felt cold.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of like I was there in the motions and I believed, but there was nothing else happening for me for a long time. And I always thought I was fucked up because of that.
Yeah.
Because everyone else seemed to be doing it right. Anyways, went through a long journey where I was not a militant atheist, because I realized that they were just taking their atheism and treating it as a new religion.
Yeah. That's what turned
with
me off.
absolutism, and they want to be able to have their sinners and have their saints and be able to, like, it just turned into all the same crap. And I knew Richard Dawkins was an asshole atheist, and I was like, I don't want to be that. So I knew what I didn't want to be, and so I went on a long journey. And then Jordan Peterson's work, and I'll answer your sort of original question, brought me to a place where I could have an intellectual faith in God. So the underlying sort of beliefs or whatever aspects to this is one that we think of the world in hierarchies as humans. Like, we can recognize spectrums and hierarchies, and things are greater or lesser in various dimensions than others.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those hierarchies is moral authority.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the highest moral authority in the universe to be placed? And if you place it in the transcendent, above physical reality, and you say there's laws about the way we exist as humans that comes from the creation, the creator, from the design of the whole system, you're placing the highest moral authority in the appropriate place. And for me, that would be, with God, with that transcendent structure, the will and consciousness that decided why gravity on Earth accelerates at 9.95 seconds per second, whatever the thing is. Like, you can recognize how fast gravity accelerates, but why it accelerates that quickly, you can never answer. Because it was chosen at some point. It was decided. Something decided it. You want to call it distributed intelligence, whatever. Anywho, so I was getting a little lost there, but I'll just jump into something else. We have concrete natures as human beings. We're biological creatures emerging up out of Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
If we just followed our base instincts as men, as an example, women too, but men, and slapped every booty we felt like and squeezed every titty we felt like, society would fall apart tomorrow. You cannot just follow your base programming as a human being. It's a faulty system.
Mm-hmm.
We have to repent from our sinful ways, our non-ideal, because sin is just missing the ideal, the mark, our non-ideal way of being by nature, and aspire to higher order ideals, the judgmental Father, and live according to the will that decided the structure of the universe. And so if we're creatures with a concrete nature, there's going to be some ultimate ideal way to live as human beings. And you define that as what's the way we live that if we did it all collectively, humanity is successful and growing and flourishing. So like homosexuality is not the ideal, because if we were all gay tomorrow, no more babies.
Yeah.
So you can't say that being gay is the ideal, but you can also say that there's the ideal, non-ideal, but still good, neutral at some point, and then eventually you get into bad, and eventually you get into evil. And it's that marksmanship, that sinful thing. Like you can, if you're an archer and you're taking a shot at the bullseye, you can miss it by 2 inches, or you can shoot the guy behind you. There's gradations in our level of evil.
Yeah.
As far as what that ultimate truth looks like, it's the individualist philosophy, more or less. There's an individual consciousness behind your eyes that is as real and beautiful and complex as any other. And you have to recognize that first. Then you have a decentralized philosophy where you believe that the individual shades of all of our humanity all have value. And it's about all of the individual expressions being allowed to flourish in a free and open society, non-totalitarian, that allow those individual expressions to come forth. And decentralized systems outperform centralized systems in the world, like just period. And so that is divine truth. The Bible said we are made in the image of God. Decentralized systems outperform centralized systems. And if you have a philosophy that is decentralized and sees that individual contribution, individual freedom as important, you've now struck gold on all levels of reality. And that's how divine truth would work, more or less. And so like the prophecy of the end times, where we have a charismatic dictator that captures the love of the world, and marks people as his, meaning we are no longer gods. The circumstances that will bring that about in the ultimate, when I believe that will finally happen, I think that's built into human nature. It will eventually get that far in totalitarianism. Anytime we get close, it will look similar to the end times as prophesied. So Hitler captured the world. The New York Times loved him. IBM loved him. Lots of people loved him. And he brought forth hell on earth. The German people were in a position where they had to lie, otherwise they would be attacked. And their lies brought forth mass murder. Because they deviated from the truth, the way, the life, the singular structure. Like science is the mechanical, and religion is commenting on the moral. We as beings interacting with other beings over time have to figure out a best practice, so to speak. And that's what religion, in the good sense, is trying to do. But again, that sinful nature, our base programming sucks. Evil and corruption are a part of human beings. Like I think it was Alexander Solzhenitsyn that had the quote that said, "The line between good and evil goes across every human's heart." I think he said man's heart, but we all have the potential to do good or bad. And I'm speaking just to men at the moment, because we're the bigger, stronger ones. We must choose to either be protectors or predators, because we are aggressive by nature. We want in most cases, we want bodies, period, but we want women's bodies in general. And so if you don't master that aggression in the protector identity, by definition, it will venture into the predator identity. Because it's not love, as she said, and non-love. It's love and power. When you remove love, what's left is political power. When you remove the transcendent highest moral authority from beyond, it falls to either political ideologies. Typically, that's why communists are so fucking obnoxious.
Yeah.
Same thing with the anarcho-capitalists. They're also so fucking obnoxious. Not as much because they aren't, signing off on genocide. But anywho, the other place most people will put the highest moral authority is up here. And that's the trap of atheists, because where you think your reason, your ability to reason is the end all be all. But if you're tapping into traditional wisdom, it's by definition not your reason. You didn't figure it all out from yourself. If we were tasked with figuring everything out from scratch, we wouldn't figure out shit in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like you get nothing done. My everything I know is because of other people and just piecing those things together. It's very little of it is my own, like, actual independent thinking.
Yeah.
And so, and Satan, the satanic church, teaches that you are your own God. And so the atheist position is a de facto satanic position. If you believe that your reason, or you, is the highest moral authority, then you can do whatever the fuck you want to anyone, and it doesn't matter. And that's postmodernism, and there's a lot of things there. Anyways.
Yeah.
C'est la vie.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've kind of been thinking about. Like, if the idea of if heaven isn't real, but believing in heaven would lead someone to just generally be a good person, contribute in whatever good ways. I mean, in the end all be all, even though technically they did it for, they're not getting to heaven because it doesn't exist, didn't they still leave a good mark in life? Like, because they were just generally living a very good life. You know what I'm saying? So
then you have to ask why they cared about living a good life. What does that mean? Why did they choose it? And the answer comes back to love. Loving your fellow man, believing that we're all worth something, believing we're all made in the image of God. We didn't get that idea out of our ass. It came from somewhere, but we like to pretend like, oh, we figured that shit out ourselves. Look at me. I'm so smart.
Yeah, I've heard, I think Dennis Prager, mentioned something about that. I think he had a debate with, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was talking with someone who was an atheist, and they were talking about, like, objective morality. And it kind of opened my eyes, because what you're saying is similar to sort of what Dennis was saying. Like, the point that, like, it's easy for me to have, like, a standard morality because I've grown up here, but I've grown up in a place that was founded on, like, Christian values. So there is a kind of, like, it evolved from that. And if that wasn't there, then I probably would have a different morals, but,
The other side of that is if you're aware of other moral frameworks and systems and religions and all that, and you still choose what you choose, then you can claim it as your own, I think.
Yeah.
But if you're ignorant of all those other things, then you just don't know. And like, I think it was a neat, Jordan Peterson has reiterated this, but there's a Nietzsche quote where people are foolish that think themselves virtuous when they have no teeth. Meaning, just because you haven't hurt anyone doesn't mean you're a good person, because you might not be capable of hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And so it's not a choice. It's not an active withholding of a thing. It's just your de facto position.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were used to be an atheist back in the day. Did you ever are you aware of the what was it called?
I'm sorry, guys, but I do have to get going.
Okay, it's gonna end soon, so okay. Anyways.
Oh, well, perfect.
Yeah. Oh, anyways, I just had a question. Did you follow the whole atheism plus movement? You know what that was?
I think I've heard of it once, but that's it.
That was like the thing that just turned me away forever from it. It was like a breed of atheism that suggested that in order to be a true atheist, you had to, like, adopt feminism. It was the weirdest fucking thing, and I remember seeing.
This
Like-
is the first time I'm hearing about
There
this.
is no
What?
God, which is why feminists are correct.
Yeah. So
Logic.
yeah, I remember seeing like a what do you call it, like a speech of it, and it literally just looked like a sermon. It was just like they were replacing some kind of religion with
Yeah,
feminism.
that's them. So that's what I spoke to. When you replace a political ideology with a religious belief system, that's what happens. You're
Yeah.
placing the highest moral authority in what the liberal democratic establishment believes at this given moment.
Yeah.
You know, not very good foundation there.
Well, that's creepy beyond belief.
Yeah, I was just curious if you knew about that. 'Cause it was just
On that note, though, there's something interesting to be said about that. I want to see a church for atheists show up because they still need community. They still need to be thinking about these ideas. And if once a week they could turn their mind towards the ultimate, you know, it'd be better for them. So I've thought about that for a long time. So it's like 25% of people now that consider themselves atheist or just non-religious. And my grandfather preached the difference between religion and a relationship with God, and that's what we talk about. That's the way it was phrased: is a relationship with the structure of the universe, basically. You know, versus the religion is just the institution. It's the people. It's the tithing. It's the structure of it. It's the institution. But any institution, as time goes on from its initial creation, it's gonna deviate from that initial mission. Mission creep by definition. And once in a while, now in politics, I call it a populist correction, but you need a realignment every now and then back to the original vision. So, but yeah, for politics, it's just we need to start prioritizing what's good for the people. You know, American people first, I guess. You know.
I guess lastly, before we end it, I was going through your Instagram posts and I saw that you had like a thing that said like I'm going to take 2 weeks off from politics, which I think is really important for people nowadays to just like take a break from this kind of shit. I guess
social media more so than anything, like the politics. Like I'm not creating anything, but I still, you know, listen to clips and a little podcast. Like I can't quite shut that off fully. I'm too deep, but yeah. Shutting Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok off of my phone, just deleting it, has been transformative for the way I felt over the last few days. Like the only thing I do on my phone is like, has my girl texted me? What time is it? Yeah. And that's it. That's as much time as I'm wasting. That's it. You know, I don't got to worry about anything else. And so it's good. And so when I go back and start getting active again, I'll probably only do it through a laptop at the end of the day. Yeah. I won't do it on my phone. It's a little too with me all the time. So. Yeah.
All right. I guess
But this shit gets old, man. You need breaks. It's toxic. Politics, like as much as I want to make politics not toxic about policy and bringing people together and all that, it's exhausting because people are tribal assholes. Yeah. And like they if you say the wrong thing, they'll blow up on you. They assume all the worst things about you, and they, you know, very rarely will actually listen to and investigate what your worldview is. So yeah, it's made to be messy to keep people from figuring out how to fix it. Yeah, in my opinion. So.
All right, I guess we'll just end it there. I guess Jordan, if you want to like plug your podcast.
Yeah, there's two. The Uncommon Ground podcast on the Uncommon Ground YouTube channel. And that's just all policy focused. I try to do big pieces. Like one of them was going through the first 27 executive orders of Joe Biden, one after the other. And then the other one is called Uncommon Conversations, where I talk with people and just try to show how to do that conversational stuff that I talk about. I've talked to communists. I've talked to a Latino from Arizona that supports Trump. I've talked to a New York University finance professor. I've talked to a female MMA fighter and bare knuckle fighter named Cassie Robb. I've talked to a bunch of different people, and I'm only more and more validated by the idea that we all agree with the goals and we just disagree on the means. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Nice.
And J Farmer on all social media, jfarmer.ig, jfarmer on TikTok. is JFarmer OG on TikTok.
Okay. I guess Divine, if you want to plug anything.
Just coffee .com so / Evine Arts if you would like to support my children's book and graphic novel.
All right, and I'm in the middle of making some merch. So be on the lookout for that.
Freaking love the Evil Dead design.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna have that done soon. All right, so that's another episode of the Critical Introverts. I'm your host, Senor Filth, and thank you guys for watching. Peace.